This video looks at the term natural succession. Succession describes how a forest is created. A forest begins with life colonizing on a bed of rock. This is called the primary succession stage. Where there is life, there will be poop, and often one organism has other organisms traveling with them. Over time, soil builds up from this poop and broken bits of rock and moisture. Annual plants grow really well at this stage because there's a lot of light, room to grow, and nutrients from the rock and the poop. The annuals grow, they have seeds and die off. They do their full life cycle quite quickly while there's the opportunity. In many places with extreme weather, like high winds, little moisture, or bitter cold, we find annuals. The annuals continue to survive and a forest doesn't develop. Let's look at that primary succession phase and how it works. We get bare rock when an area has been scorched by a volcano or fire, and surprisingly, one of the first things to appear is a spider. Then other insects and seeds blow in on the wind. Actually, seeds don't need soil to germinate. They just need something to hold them in place, to protect them from blowing away or falling over, because seeds contain what they need to get started. Annual plants grow really quickly in this open space. They use the sun and water to mature and to set seed. Ploughing maintains the primary phase. It keeps the land favouring annual crops because it destroys shrubs and trees that could be growing. So we can see that it's a two-dimensional space, a flat surface, whereas food forestry is three-dimensional. When food forestry is done well, it's a much bigger combined yield. There's more organic matter. Now let's look at how secondary succession works. As the annual plants in the primary succession stage grow and die year after year, they build up a bed of organic matter. Over time, other plant seeds blow in and then they take shelter in this bed of organic matter. These larger plant seeds can take root. The long-term plants are known as perennials. A range of perennials finally develop and trees begin to colonize the area. In a food forest, the canopy can close up. The system gets dark. I'm going to show you some strategies to keep the forest diverse and supportive to a range of plants at different heights and needs. Here we see in the secondary succession, the plants gain height and structure and a canopy is formed. As the forest canopy closes up, it starts to exclude light to the areas below. This has a dramatic effect in countries with low light levels, such as Canada or England. It has less effect in countries like Australia and Latin America. Generally speaking, you'll get a dominant species, a monoculture in the forest. So how do we maintain diversity in the forest? What strategies can be used? I'm going to show you some strategies that are used by Banya and his team at Growing Roots Permaculture. We can tailor the maturity of the food forest to ensure it has diversity by keeping the forest canopy from closing up. We can have some open areas for production and use the tree matter that we cut as we manage the forest to provide mulch and structure to the beds below. A checkered food forest, one that's not all dark but it has mixtures of light levels, is more diverse and more resilient. What Banya and his team do is they boost the succession phases. They get it to go from primary to secondary, back into a new type of primary with lots of organic matter, back into secondary and so forth. Boosting the succession retains diversity and it provides resilience to the system because diverse systems are less vulnerable to frost, high wind, drought, pests or diseases. There are more plants and animals and a wider range of species in the boosted forest system. So whilst one variety of plants or animals might suffer in an extreme event, the other species in the system can hold life. Here, Banya is talking about how the diversity and resilience is maintained by this boosted succession plan. It forms a spiral. One of the strategies used to boost succession is to create glades. This builds the soil and renews the primary succession phase. But as we've got a new primary succession phase, it's better because it's got all that organic matter and retained moisture from the forest. So now we can grow annuals and perennials at the same time. Coppicing a tree allows us to manage the food forest without killing the trees. For every tree, there's a different time of the year and a different method in which to do the coppicing. But generally speaking, trees don't have to be killed if they're blocking the light. And when we coppice, we allow interplanting because there's more light at the forest floor. And an amazing thing happens. The sugars that are in the tree are released by the tree when it suddenly doesn't need them. And those sugars go down into the soil. When we allow that to happen, and you've got plants around the trees at the base, they benefit from the release of the sugars. Eventually, the coppiced tree regrows into a shrub and the fruit is at an accessible height. Another strategy can be the use of emergent species. We can choose species that grow tall quickly and then trim the lower branches as it grows. So it grows up high like a tower with a solar panel on the top. As the tree grows, it stores sugars in the trunk and in its root system. And after just a couple of years, when it is strong enough for a ladder to be leant against it, you can cut the top off. That's called pollarding. At that point, the sugars in the tree will be shed back down into the soil. The prunings can be used as mulch. The roots die back and create air pockets in the soil. After a year or two, these trees can then be harvested as poles. That's a traditional Brazilian agroforestry technique. So in summary, we can boost the resilience of the food production system by using trees to hold and then release the water and the sugars. Our strategies include maintaining the glades, reusing the organic matter, shocking the sacrificial trees into releasing their sugars, and growing food in a layered forest with lots of edges. The key strategies are to boost your diversity, design the glades with good microclimate, that is, use the glade to face the sun and as a windbreak, build up the organic matter, manage the tree sugars, and enable a three-dimensional growth in the food forest.